Kazeros, the latest raid added inside of Korea, of course has a brand new mechanic coming with it called the Ark Grid System. This system is gonna fully overhaul the way the game is being played by most classes. And of course, it's very important to know what you guys should think about this as well. Why am I making this video right now? Because of course the Ark Grid System is maybe gonna alleviate an issue you have with a class currently. So maybe you're right now not pushing or debating of even main swapping because of a certain issue a class has, but maybe the Ark Grid System is gonna fully get rid of that, or it's not going to do anything about it, and you can be certain that you can swap freely as well. So of course the credits are to all these people at the top, of course, for translating, compiling the info, and etc. as well. I do want to say this link for the documents will be in the description down below, because I'm not going to go over every single class. I'm just going to go over a few of my own classes and talk about it as well. But of course you want to read your own ones, because it's going to be very, very interesting. So let's get into the basics of the Ark Grid System. So what the Ark system has is just super simple. There's going to be multiple cores you can unlock, and then next to the cores you can put yourself jewels to unlock the abilities of the cores. So it's gonna, of course, look at this. It's gonna be a new tab inside of your character menu if you press B, and you can see an example right here of a core and a jewel slot on the side. So the basics of the Ark Grid System is going to be unlocked after 1700. It will of course come out with the Act 4 Kazeros raid, and that's the only way you can get yourself the cores. But the jewels, the little orbs on the side of it, are actually going to be obtainable from other places as well, not just only the Kazeros raid. So the Ark Grid System requires two components in order for it to activate its effects: the cores and the jewels. So you can think about that the jewels are the points you need to fuel the cores itself. So if you've unlocked the core itself, it has no effect. You really need yourself those jewels to make sure that you get yourself the impact to your playstyle. So what's interesting, when the system will be unlocked, only one core slot will be unlocked, which means technically we cannot use the system just yet. We need at least 2 slots, because you're gonna need yourself 2 of different jewels to activate the effect, which you will see later on. So where can we get ourselves the cores and the jewels from? Super simple. We're gonna be able to get ourselves the cores from Act 4 Kazeros. They're gonna be really, they're gonna be dropped by both versions, but normal mode is gonna have a 10 times harder drop rate than hard mode. So if you really want to hunt yourself the highest ancient rarity cores, hard mode is the way to go. You cannot drop cores of other classes. You can only drop cores of the other engraving of your class as well. And cores are untradeable, which is a very big thing, guys. That they're untradeable is, in my opinion, pretty bad, but we'll see about that, how of course it changes in the future. Jewels can be obtained from daily content starting from 1700. It's going to be Crimson Frontline and Guardian raids. Can as well come from Chaos Gate, Fade Embers as well, which is very, very cool. Of course, we'll see a little bit more how that works inside of there. You need to process those jewels, and it will cost 900 gold per click. Let's take a look at the type of cores right here. So we can see there's going to be 3 red ones and 3 blue ones. So super simple. The order of the sun and the moon are like conviction judgment. You need yourself the moon to activate the effect of the sun. So without either of the two, it is not going to work, and this is going to be the main thing that's going to change the way your class works. So this could maybe be like, oh, Sudai needs maybe only 50% energy instead of 100, and that is what the 2 cores will be to activate that passive. Then the order of the star will just be a generic, like, changes in cooldown for certain skills or more meter, that kind of stuff. We'll see that later as well. And then we have ourselves the chaos versions, and these are just generic stat boosts that either apply to DPS or support classes. I don't think in this document there's any case of them showing any text of these, sadly. I would have loved to see what kind of buffs, but I don't think it actually exists in here, which kind of sucks. So maybe you're wondering, of course, how many different things there are. For every engraving for each class in the game, you have 3 options to pick in the order category. So the conviction judgment category, which will make it play differently, which is very cool. So now we're going to talk about upgrading the jewels. So this one is of course going to be the jewels, going to be the side ones next to the cores, and these of course are going to have some stats, and these are totally RNG. You're going to start off with everything at level 1, and then you can see that every time you would click upgrade for 900 gold here at the bottom, you can see there's 7 upgrades in total. It goes to do one of these 4 options. So it could go up by 1 red, up by 1 yellow, up by 2 yellows, up by 1 blue. There as well as a reroll button on the side, and of course you're just going to try to get yourself the best one possible. There is a button on the left as well, which allows you to reset this as well, which is very cool. So, but it can only be done once. So I think it's still annoying that it's RNG, but at least there is a reset for one time, and this definitely could be implemented a little bit more in all the other ones as well. So I'll quickly scroll past everything. So if you want to read it in peace, of course, feel free to do that. So of course, what is the purpose of this? They kind of just want to reboot the feel of a lot of classes, and that's why they cannot do another balance patch, because they do not know how impactful these exchanges will be for the classes. And especially because of this one right here, the class core set. So of course, the conviction judgment sets we saw before, you can actually max them because you can mix them in any way you want, which is very interesting. So if we go down a little bit, this will show a little bit how it works. So for example, right here we have a Berserker's Technique one. So you can see there's a Sun Core effect and a Moon Core effect, which is going to be all for one combination. But you can see right here, if you go over to Overpower, for example, there is a different one as well, which has a Sun Core and a Moon Core. But what you could technically do is you could take this Sun Core and take this Moon Core, and you could take like the third one, you could take this Star Core. So this would make it very interesting to see, of course, what people are going to come up with as combinations, because it could just mean that sometimes it's better to take it from a different one, or maybe you take like 1 and 2 of these, and then you take 3 from this one. For example, I think with Bard, this will be the case. So this is going to be the big part of why this system is going to be so versatile, but as well so unpredictable to where the class balance could go, because there could be something like super broken if you combine like 3 different sets together, and suddenly it's like the most OP thing you've ever seen. So I'm gonna do a little example right now of one of the classes I played, and that's going to be Bard. So Bard right here is going to start off with the Indomitable Serenade buff set. This is for DPS, by the way. So it's going to give us on the base 1.5% extra damage on all these 2. But when the Fate is activated, which will be the Moon Core effect, it will give us 6% more damage for 30 seconds, and as well as transformation gets another 2% buff. Okay, Moon Core effect, another 1.5% damage, so we're up to 3%. And then when I get Serenade Courage, which is going to be my Z, I get myself this buff activated. And as well, Serenade, Sonic Vibration, Serenade Gauge, acquisition plus 30%, and damage plus 40%. So this is going to be mainly a core that likes to play around with the Sonic Vibration skill. And then of course the Star Core effect we see here as well, which gives us a lot more gauge on Harp, which is very cool. Okay, so this is an option. Let's go down a little bit. This is going to be about Tempest. So Tempest is going to be this big Z buff that Bard has, which is like billions and billions of damage. And what we can do is we get ourselves a nice basic 3.72% and 3.72%. So that's already going to be a 7.4% buff. Okay, besides that, when we activate Fate, which is when casting Tempest, which is going to be the secondary Z buff attack, I get myself minus 35% gauge acquisition for 60 seconds. But I will do 25% more damage with the 2 bubble buff as well. And basically, besides that, my damage skills will be up by 22%. So this could be interesting. I do not know if this is going to be the best option for us, because of course, minus 35% gauge acquisition is interesting. But it does 25% more damage on 2 bubbles. But if I really wanted to and I do not like this one, I can always take this one as my primary and still activate it with the Tempest damage of the Moon Core effect. Because you can see this one just upgrades it by 3.72 and as well 8% damage on 2 bubbles. So I can still cast the 2 bubble buff, get myself an extra buff from the second Moon Core, but I do not get the negative 35%. Of course, I do not get the buff 25% as well, but I could get something else. So let's take a look at the third option maybe, and that's going to be Shock Loop. Sound Shock's cooldown is up by 8 seconds, but the damage increased by 30%. When the gauge activated, get 100% less gauge, but when Sound Shock crits, you gain 1800 Serenade gauge for 120 seconds. So this, of course, could be interesting as well. Maybe we can use this together with this one to get a lot of energy instantly after using our Tempest. So we cast double Tempest, bonk, we hit the boss, and then we hit the boss with a Sound Shock, and then we suddenly cannot get gauge anymore, but we get 1800 gauge. So, and then after that, we just immediately go ahead and be able to maybe even do another double damage hit. We'll see about that. So, of course, there's some other things right here. So you can see there is going to be interesting parts to mix and match. And you maybe want to mix and match the Sun and the Moon Core, because the Star Core is just literally whatever you want it to be. Because you can see this one's just Sonic Vibration damage up, more gauge from the tripod on Harp. And then this one, for example, is Sound Holic damage up, and Sound Holic more gauge for 120% more, which is kind of insane. Or this one could be cast speed of Sound Shock plus 10%, damage plus 12%, restores mana if you maybe have issues with that. So, you You know, there's a lot of interesting things you can do with mixing and matching of these things. Okay, and I'm gonna go over to the last one I'm gonna do for this video, and that's gonna be about Asura. So this one again is gonna be interesting because first of all, this one is gonna be the breaking news, which is gonna increase the Eye of the Storm damage mainly for these two effects. But of course, we can combine these still. So this one is gonna increase the Eye of the Storm effect by 10%, and when we use Eye of the Storm, it's gonna activate the Fate. But we do not really care about this that much. Maybe we don't care maybe about the energy increase. Maybe we like this one more. So finisher damage for Asura's there, okay? When Fate's activated, gain 20% HP shield and damage to enemies for 7.5%. So I could do like every time I activate Eye of the Storm, I get myself, you know, 6% 6 seconds of damage and HP shield. So that could be interesting, right? Or we could be like, okay, maybe I want this one, but I want the Sure Finisher damage as well. When we enter Sure State, I want to do more damage and get myself extra Sure Energy immediately when it's over. So there's like so many different things we can do to combine these two things. And of course, there's going to be a lot of theory crafting about what's going to be the best options. And maybe your character just doesn't have good ones. And then in my opinion, what you could just do is maybe considering swapping. Of course, these things could change, right? What these cores are going to do. But I think if all three are ones that you do not like, I'm sorry, this is probably something you're going to be stuck with for most of the rest of the part of the game. So it could be very annoying because they said as well, this system is going to be a multi-year system for you to work on. So if all these things are something that you literally do not like, then maybe it's just time to swap to something else. Because of course, it could be that you really like the other spec more because we have Broken Storm. I've not read any of this, by the way. But it could be that this is actually really fun or a lot better to play with. So I could swap from Asura to Broken. And if both of them are trash, then maybe it's just time to play something else instead. So there we go, guys. I hope that explained the Ark Grid system a little bit. If you guys, of course, did enjoy, would highly appreciate a like down below, guys. Subscribe if you're new. The link to the documents will be in the description down below. So go ahead and click it and check out your own class yourself as well. Thanks so much for watching and see you guys again soon for another video. Take care.